I need these photocopied and filed, Sarah. James barely glanced at me as he dropped a stack of papers on my desk. And grabbed me a coffee, black, 2 sugars. I looked down at the documents, draft merger proposals for Montgomery Industries, our family company. At least, that's how they saw it. I was just the secretary with the same last name. Anything else? I asked evenly. Actually, yes, he smirked, finally meeting my eyes. Board meetings at 2 p.m. Make sure the conference room's set up, you know, like a good little secretary. What he didn't know was that the Real Montgomery board meeting had already happened, at 7 a.m. this morning, in my other office, the one with Frost Enterprises, CEO etched on the door. My phone buzzed silently. Merger documents received, awaiting final review. I'll handle everything, I said, watching him walk off in his tailored suit, as self-satisfied as ever. For 5 years, I played the role of Sarah Montgomery, the overlooked sibling, the family disappointment, the glorified assistant. They never questioned why I stayed in such a low-level job, never guessed what I was really doing. They also never noticed who was quietly buying controlling shares in their biggest rival, or how Frost Enterprises went from near bankruptcy to dominating the market. Another ping. Legal team standing by, ready to execute counteroffer? I smiled, remembering last night's dinner. At least get a real job, my father had scoffed. James is closing million-dollar deals while you're making coffee. She's just not driven, my mother sighed, no Montgomery fire in her. James had chuckled, someone's gotta do the filing. Another alert popped up. Montgomery Industries stock dropping, ideal time to move. I calmly gathered the duplicate merger documents James had dropped. The originals were already in my downtown executive office. The intercom buzzed. Miss Montgomery, the board is arriving early. Send them to the smaller conference room, I replied. And James? Make sure there's fresh coffee, black, 2 sugars. The irony tasted sweeter than sugar. At exactly 2 p.m., I remained at my desk, watching through the glass as James took the lead, radiating smug confidence. Today, we're discussing our offer to acquire Frost Enterprises, he began. Given their market position, it's more than fair. My phone lit up. Counteroffer delivered, arriving in 3, 2, 1. Right on cue, every phone in the room buzzed. I watched expressions morph from smug to stunned. This can't be right, James stammered, face blanching. They're not countering, they're launching a hostile takeover. My father's voice cut through the tension. Not launching, completing. According to this, Frost already owns 51% of our shares. But, how? When? I rose, smoothing my Chanel suit, the one they said was too expensive for a secretary. Over the past 5 years, I said, stepping into the room, while you were all too busy telling me to stay in my place. Silence. Every eye turned to me, realization spreading like wildfire. Sarah, James whispered, what is this? I walked slowly to the head of the table. He stepped aside without thinking. Perhaps, I said, it's time you let the secretary lead the meeting. We should discuss this with Frost Enterprises. I held up my real company ID, letting it catch the light. Oh, wait, that's me. The room exploded into chaos. Board members scrambled to check their phones. My father clutched the edge of the table like it was the only thing keeping him upright. My mother looked ready to faint. Impossible, James kept repeating, his voice small. You're just a secretary. No, I said calmly, stepping forward. I'm the CEO who's been watching you run this company into the ground while you treated me like your personal barista. I slid a folder across the table, the real merger documents. And now, I continued, I own controlling interest in Montgomery Industries. The conference room transformed into a war zone of spreadsheets and frantic whispers. Each document I revealed was another nail in the coffin of their arrogance. 5 years? My father croaked, flipping through acquisition records with trembling hands. You planned this for 5 years? Actually, I said, tapping a remote to display the company's financials on the big screen. I've been executing this for 5 years. The planning started much earlier, right after you told me I wasn't Montgomery material, and handed everything to James. James dropped into a chair, all the expensive tailoring in the world unable to hide his collapse. His confidence evaporated, replaced by raw disbelief. But Frost Enterprises, it was floundering after old man Frost died. He stammered, Until that mysterious successor turned it around. I nodded, almost sympathetically. Exactly. Did it never cross your minds to ask who took it over? Who transformed it from a local footnote into a global powerhouse? We tried, one board member confessed weakly, but everything led to shell companies and holding groups. Winter Holdings, Arctic Ventures, North Star Capital, I listed, watching their faces pale with every name. All subsidiaries of Frost Enterprises, all controlled by me. My phone buzzed, stock price dropping, Montgomery Industries now vulnerable for complete acquisition. I glanced up. While you were busy telling me to act like a proper secretary, I was building an empire. Every coffee run, every document I filed, every meeting I scheduled, all gave me insight into exactly how you were failing. Failing? James snapped, desperation leaking into his voice. We're one of the top firms in the industry. I tilted my head, amused. Are you? I clicked through slides, market share down 15% in 3 years, no viable innovation since 2021, top talent fleeing to more visionary companies, like mine. The board members shifted uncomfortably, finally forced to face what they had ignored for years. Remember Anderson, your star project manager? I asked lightly. He works for me now. So does Dar. Chin from RD, Martinez from International Sales, mine. Turns out, talent prefers leadership over empty legacy. You poached them, my father sputtered. No, I corrected smoothly. You drove them away. I simply gave them a better home. I checked my Cartier watch. Now, let's discuss your options. I laid 2 folders on the table. Option 1, accept my merger terms. You stay, in demoted roles, of course, and the company survives. Option 2, resist, lose everything, and watch me pick up the remains at bankruptcy auctions. You destroy your own family's legacy? My father asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I met his gaze, steady and unflinching. No, I said softly, but firmly, I'm saving it, from you. The next few weeks transformed Montgomery Industries in ways my family never imagined. The old guard was swept aside, replaced by true professionals. Merit took the place of nepotism. Innovation eclipsed complacency. James found himself demoted to assistant project manager, reporting to Anderson, the very man he'd once dismissed as irrelevant. My father chose early retirement rather than serve under his daughter, and my mother vanished from society events, unable to explain how her secretary-daughter now ran the empire. In my new office, perched between both companies' towers, symbolizing their union, I reviewed transition reports when my assistant buzzed. Miss Montgomery, James is here to see you. James stepped in cautiously, dressed in business casual instead of his usual bespoke suits. A month of real work had stripped away his polish. The Anderson project report, he said, setting a folder on my desk. He needs your signature. I skimmed the document. For the first time, it was thorough, thoughtful analysis instead of shallow summaries. Sit down, James. I gestured to a chair. Let's talk about your first month actually working. He sat, stiff and wary. Pride and humility clashed across his face. It's been educational, he said finally. Oh, what did you learn? He swallowed. That I knew nothing about business, leadership, anything, really. My phone buzzed. Frost Montgomery merger, final phase complete, stock up 30%. Anderson's a good teacher, I remarked, if you listen to him. He is. James shifted. He told me about that innovation proposal, the one I rejected without reading, the one you used at Frost to make millions. I smiled. Yes, one of our best decisions. He hesitated, then finally asked, how did you do it? Build all this while we thought you were just a secretary? I finished signing and looked up. You never wondered why someone with a Wharton MBA would choose to be a secretary? His eyes widened. You have an MBA from Wharton? Class of 2018, top of my class. I paused, but you were all too busy celebrating your future CEO to notice my graduation. A heavy silence settled. Did you hate us? He asked. No, I met his gaze steadily. I pitied you. You believed birth order gave you the right to lead. I knew leadership has to be earned. My phone lit up. Forbes interview request. The secretary who became a titan. Press frenzy ongoing. I showed him the screen. Seems the world loves a story about the overlooked daughter outsmarting her entire family. He looked down. Dad's devastated. Mom hasn't left the house. They'll adjust, just like you are. I opened his performance review. Anderson says you're showing promise, when you actually work. Really? A flicker of his old spark appeared. Really, I said, which is why I'm giving you a choice. What choice? Keep going, learn the business from the ground up, and maybe, one day, earn a real executive role, or take your settlement and leave. He hesitated. What would you do? I tilted my head. I already did it. I chose to learn every part of this business, willingly. You're here because you have no other choice. My assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. MS. Montgomery, the final integration team is ready. Thank you. I turned back to James. Well? He sat up straighter. I want to stay, to learn, for real this time. Even under people you once called beneath you? Especially because of that, he said, voice steady. They know things I never bothered to understand. I studied him for a moment, then nodded. Good, let's talk about your development plan. You'll start in the innovation department. Under Dar Chin, he asked, naming the researcher he had once dismissed as a waste of budget. Yes, I confirmed, the same Dar Chin whose work you once called unnecessary expenses. You'll find her insights illuminating.